And then I will bow in. Okay. I should have bowed to you guys too. Sorry. Okay, I thought today we would start with the centering, and for those of you who are in the UK, it kind of feels like the first day of spring today. Not only have the clocks gone forward at the weekend, but we actually saw some sunshine, amazing. And so it tempts you out and you start to notice that things are greening up and that the flowers are coming out on the trees, etc., etc. So rather nice. So I thought I would take you to one of my favorite places in your heads, and we'd center that way. Okay. Okay, so make sure you're sitting comfortably, or standing if you prefer, or kneeling, or lying down, even whatever works for you. Okay. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you're walking by a river, and the water is crystal clear. You can see the weed waving in the current. You can see fish swimming in the water and or holding station, looking for food. The wind is blowing very lightly. The reeds by the side of the water are rustling, as are the trees. And to your left, there's a field of wheat, and that too is rustling in the wind. And ahead of you are just blue skies and the sun. The air is warm, not hot. Your back feels warm, and there's just a light breeze blowing along. And it's getting a little hot, and you find a large tree under which you can sit, where it's a little cooler. And under the tree is a mossy bank. And there you can just sit and watch the river, hear the birds, listen to the insect sound, and just feel at peace. Now, as you relax, you come into your body and you start to notice your breathing. And the more you notice it, the longer the breathing becomes, and the more relaxed you become. Your shoulders hanging down. And when you pay attention to your facial muscles, you notice that there's no wrinkles in your forehead. Around your eyes, the wrinkles go. Your jaw is slack. Your stomach muscles are slack. Your thighs are relaxed. You can feel the weight as you sink into the moss underneath you. Your feet are splayed out as you relax. And this is just a moment for you. And in your own time, you might decide to come back to the room. So how are we all feeling? Are we feeling chilled?
Fine.
Good. All right, so I thought we'd actually start with a little bit of a breathing exercise, just continue that sort of calm feeling. So again, you can kneel, you can sit comfortably, you can do as you like. I'm going to sit with my ankles together, more or less in Caesar, and my legs apart. My left hand sits on my right hand, just below my center. I make sure that my back is straight, that I'm looking forward, and I'm going to shut my eyes. I shall stay sideways on. I take a breath in, and then I'm going to breathe out through my mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And as I finish, I let my body come forward, not so far, probably my head's around over my knees, I would think at the moment, and then I start to breathe in. As I reach the end of that cycle, I straighten up, and then I breathe out again. And maybe you can count in your head to see how long your in-breath is and how long your out-breath is. And you're looking to match them. And as you do this, you should start to notice that it takes on a rhythm of its own. Last cycle. So how do you now feel?
Relaxed.
Cool. Anything else? Okay. So today I was chatting to Joe about the nature of power. And is power physical strength, or is it something much more subtle? Opinions. What do you think?
Well, it's a word that has many different meanings,
Very
obviously.
true. Okay, let me ask the question a slightly different way. Do you feel more powerful now than you did before you came into this session?
Yes.
Yes.
Nothing.
Because I'm more relaxed, and being more relaxed, especially in Aikido, helps one become more powerful.
Yeah, I think so. What do others think?
Yeah, there's two types of, I mean, there's power that is strength, and there's power that is through relaxation, and they're quite different.
They are quite different. True. Finn?
Yeah, I feel the same.
Potential energy. Sorry.
Go, Steve, you go first, and then we'll come to you, Finn. Go on, Steve.
What I was saying was that it's the same to last comment. Really, there's two different powers running parallel.
Okay.
So you're getting ki,
Yeah.
and you don't need the muscle strength, but it's there if you have in a problem. At least you're able to move
Yep. Okay.
muscularly.
Finn?
I'm thinking about potential to act, capacity to act. So I was thinking after that exercise, I felt more in sync and potentially.
Your sound's not so good. Can you get a little bit closer?
Sorry, I'm using these headphones, so it's probably going awry there. Just the potential capacity to act or to, and I feel more. I was thinking more in sync and temporally after that exercise.
Yeah. So the way I would describe it is that I always feel that physical power is a bit one-dimensional. So, I mean, if you're applying physical power, it's usually in one direction. If a surprise comes in another direction, you haven't got much capacity to withstand that. Whereas the kind of power we've got is a readiness for anything. This relaxed power is a readiness for anything that allows you to see what's coming clearly and to react appropriately to deal with it. And that's why when we're on the mat, we want to try and capture this feeling so that when somebody's coming at us with a sword or a knife, it's just not a problem. It's just a thing that's going on. We see it coming from a mile away and we do what we have to do to deal with it. Any other thoughts, or does that seem fair?
Just going to say the thing that's worth mentioning is that physical power has limitations, and as you get older, you lose it.
Very true.
Whereas power through relaxation will stay with you all the way.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how those who have practiced Aikido for 40 or 50 years seem to have a lot more power than those that have just done it for a year or two.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes the point, doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of Ikkyo. I know some of you have done this with me before, but it does seem a really important exercise, so I'd like to do it for everybody now. We've done quite a few exercises in recent weeks where we're just shifting our weight from front to back. And we don't lose our balance. We stay in our power as we're doing this movement. Hopefully, as I'm doing this sideways on, you do not see my back bend forward or leave my shoulders behind. It just travels on my hips. If I go too far forward, then you start to notice a bit of a slope. And that's how I have to cope because I've gone too far forward. If I get pushed from behind now, I'm in trouble. So I want to just, it's not such a big movement. If I step, I can increase the movement, but my back does the same thing. Often when we do Ikkyo Undo, we do want to take a movement. We don't have to, but we can. So you can add the step. But remember to draw your foot up as you come back. Maybe you can focus on your center and just feel it traveling forwards and backwards on a horizontal line. And that's where your focus wants to be really. That's where you want to feel the power. You don't want to be thinking of your head. You don't want to be aware of your shoulders. You want to be aware of this, traveling backwards and forwards. And it should feel powerful and purposeful. Okay, so the arm movement. I'm just going to forget the legs for the moment. If I were lifting my hand to shake hands, it would be there. And I come maybe a little higher for Ikkyo Undo. And some of you will say, well, that doesn't look like Ikkyo Undo. But remember, there are two purposes for this exercise. One is to deflect, a showman cut, and the other is to meet and blend with a showman cut. So if I'm going to meet it, then I'll end up in this position. My hands will be further up, but notice there's still no bend in my arm, there's none of that going on. I never do this kind of thing. Whatever the shape of my arm is, it stays that shape. And it's never going to go any higher than when I start to lift my shoulder to lift it higher. At this point, I know I'm fairly unstable. Here, you can test me and I'm going to be strong. So although your arm is not on the vertical, your mind is lifted. So what people see, they see an outward movement with a little bit of up, but in your mind, you're going straight up in order to go straight down. Yep. Okay, so we're just going to practice the arm movement. So outwards and back. Well, I introduced some leg movement there. I'll stop that. Just out and down. Notice I curl these three fingers up and I leave my ring finger pointing to the ground to give it a bit of focus. Maybe you can't notice from there. So I've curled my fingers up as I drop down. So up or out and down. Out and down. Out and down. Out and down. Okay, so now we do it with the leg movement. So it's legs, arms, arms, legs. That's the sequence. Legs, arms, arms, legs. We're not going to have such a distance between them, but as we practice it, this is a good way to start. Legs, arms, arms, legs. Legs, arms, arms, legs. Legs, arms, arms, legs. Well, and then it just becomes pretty much one. So feel the power down and feel the power out. I'm opposite a door to the garden. I can see my reflection. So I can imagine throwing water over myself in the reflection. It's a real power move. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Then you swap feet. 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this time we're going to do a bit of movement. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So a little bit of feedback from you guys. What do you notice happening in your body as you're doing this? What does it feel like? Good, bad? What are you noticing?
Move to it.
Say that again.
Getting into the groove.
Right.
I'm noticing moving from the center and the body being coordinated and moving together.
Yes. So there should be a feeling of unification about that in your body and your head, mind, really. You should be doing it with purpose and focus of the mind, really putting your attention forward and really putting your attention down. But it should feel equally good in your body and that your body's helping to grow that power. Any other observations?
You should feel that your feet are fairly solid on the ground. You don't want your heels coming off as you
Yes.
go forward.
Yes, especially on the static one. On the movement one, maybe it's a lighter feeling about that.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are times where we really want to ground, and then there are times where we want to feel like we're floating across the mat almost. So yeah, with the movement, we want the second one, and when we're holding our ground, we want to feel really grounded. Any other thoughts?
Yes, I think that during this movement, one can feel both energies at the same time, even when we're extending up. I think we're not supposed to lose the grounding. So you feel the up, the sky energy, as they say, and the down at the same time. It means you're not uprooted when you're going up.
I think that's a really good observation. I think that's something that we should try the exercise again, and we'll focus on that. So I want people to see if they can notice how they feel rooted to the ground. At the same time, we'll extend it upwards a bit more than just out, and see if we can feel that sort of balance of power. So a number of leading teachers that I've trained with always say power is never in one direction. It needs to be going in two directions, at least. I happen to think that actually it's all directions. It's more like a sphere at all times, that you're like the sun radiating out in all directions. But if you're sending your energy in one direction, it should also be balanced by energy going in the other direction. Any other thoughts or feedback?
Yes, for me, I'm still trying to embody the legs first and arms after. So this order. But what I notice is that when I move with my legs and my center first, I can notice more when my arms is going too much and my elbows. Okay. It's actual. So that's always when I lost my balance. Okay. When my arms go beyond.
Okay, so there's some really good stuff in that. So we were talking about earlier on teachers saying, do it this way. And you know, it might be appropriate for some students, but it's not appropriate for other students. So I'm doing the count to the rhythm I'm doing it. But if you're going to if it breaks down for you, then slow it down, you know, until you're happy at that pace, and then slowly build up from there. The other thing is that you're paying attention to what's going on. You're noticing that your shoulders are up a bit. Now, if you notice it, you can adjust it. If you don't notice it, there's nothing you can do. So that's exactly what we want out of this class, that you're starting to pay attention to how you feel as you're doing the exercise. Okay, so let's come back and let's try Dimitra's idea. I'll count, but you don't have to follow my count. It's more for me than for you. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, stop. So you should feel really solid underneath your feet right now. And if someone were to maybe gently push you from the shoulders, you should feel that you can hold your ground very easily. I go too far, and now I've lifted my shoulders and I feel I've lost that contact with the ground as well. So if I bring it back down, there comes a point where it's like I've landed the lunar module and I feel that contact with the ground. So just play a little bit. When do you start to feel liftoff? And when do you ground? And that's the place you want to be operating from. Yeah. So don't do any exercise without thought. It should always feel like you're within your power, that you're balanced in your movement, that you're centered in your movement, that you're relaxed in your movement, and that you're extending and aware in your movement as well. And if you notice that it doesn't feel comfortable, then you must be being aware. Yeah, that's a very good sign. Okay, so we do the Ikkyo. We're taking our partner a little bit higher than they intended. They're lifting up to come down. But when you add your power to theirs, the idea is that you take them a little bit beyond where they intended to go. And so what do they want to do next? If you're too far up, what do you want to do?
You want to come down.
You want to come down, right? So you're just going to help your partner find the down. Okay, so my friendly belt. So I'm up here on my Ikkyo, and I'm going to be coming to here, right? So where is the down? Is it down through my legs to the ground here? What should I be thinking of? Thoughts?
The sole of the feet
Okay. Anybody else?
and grounding down.
Anybody else?
Percent.
Potential space, the void.
Did you say your partner's center?
It's coming
actually
down
just
to your
I mean
center.
your center. Joe.
And then your center is going down.
Okay, your center going down. Joe, what did you mean? Did you mean your center or your partner's?
I think both. First, I said my center because I'm holding here.
Yep.
I'm holding him here. His center is here. My center is here.
Okay.
So it's an exercise of blending both centers, maybe.
Okay, maybe. Anybody else with a thought?
Well, it's sending the center, connecting with your center and grounding it, sending it down to the ground, to the earth.
Okay, we can't experience this just working on our own. This is something you're going to have to store in your head. And when you have the opportunity to practice with a partner, you can see whether I'm talking out of my bottom or not. When I get to here, there should be a strong sense of connection with my partner. We've come together here. And actually, my focus should be on their center line. So I genuinely will be looking down their center line. I usually take their nose as a good point to focus on, and I imagine I'm taking their nose to the ground. Now, in a way, you're right, Joe, because if we're one unit and I'm dropping my partner's center, I am also dropping my center. It will drop as one. The only difference being is that my one is I stop my physical body here until they're heading towards the ground, and then I will go and kneel behind their arm. Yeah, so they drop down to the floor before I do. If that was their arm, I would want to be controlling them here, and then I don't know if you can get the angle on this. I will stretch them out. Yeah. And what you'll find is that People with quite lithe, thin bodies like me, my arm, if you want to stretch me out, you've got to take my arm up here somewhere to stretch me out. Otherwise, I just get up. But if you're working with someone like Steve, who's much burlier than I am, generally what you have to do is wrap their arm around your knee. So where you have one knee into their elbow and you wrap the hand so it's pointing back towards your hips. And that seems to work really, really well for big, strong guys. There's not much flexibility. You can't get the shoulder to move. And if you try, they just get up. So don't try and force it. Just find where it stops and then bend their arm around your knee. And then that works really, really well. But you must have this sense of unity. You're not just pushing their arm, you're feeling connected with their center, and you're guiding down through the center line to the ground. And as I say, I usually take it from the nose, because if you think about it, they're going to be in something like this position. So to make them lose their balance doesn't take much. It's the head that's going to be the tipping point, isn't it? If you guide the head, the rest of the body will follow, basically. So as they're going down, I'm walking forwards to accommodate the fact that they don't want to hit the mat chin first. So their body travels forwards too. I follow them, but my mind is always down. Otherwise, you're just dog walking. If your mind doesn't go down, the dog walks forward, you walk forward, but nothing happens. You just go for a nice walk. You have to take the dog or the partner to the ground. Okay, so any thoughts on that?
Yes,
It's a matter of intention.
Very much a matter of intention. This is one that people can't see. They can't see what you're doing with your head, but it makes a huge difference to what happens to the partner. They either just walk forward if they're following properly, or they head to the ground because they can't. They can't do anything else but head to the ground. They're linked to your center and your mind, and when you drop it, they drop it. Have to, because they're linked. Somebody else had some thoughts, I hope.
Thinking about still wondering about your question about power as well, but it's the power to imagine and this potential space, the third space. So you're imagining this new possibility.
Yes, it is. Very much I imagine a line, Finn, but I believe it's more than a line. I think there is a genuine connection that translates through the way you're thinking. And can I give you a scientific explanation for why? No, not really. Science is starting to understand how one mind affects another mind, but I wouldn't attempt to give you a scientific explanation. I'd just say, look, hey, it works. It works when I think this way. It doesn't work when I think another way. And hopefully you'll find that for yourselves when you try it.
Yeah, it's a
James.
part of the Tai Chi concept of the 6 harmonies, where you put your mind so where you want the body to be.
Yes, absolutely. Although I'm going to literally think down past their nose, a pendulum line down to the floor. But because most people are going to hurt themselves if you do that with power, I do it gently so that they're able to glide into the mat as opposed to smash into the mat. If you do an Ikkyo, I once had a situation where I had a student who was just really brilliant at Ukemi, and he would love to have a good thrash at the end of the session. So he used to come at me like Kato in those Pink Panther movies and attack me, and I would just throw him, and we'd do that for a few minutes until he was exhausted, and then that was a nice way to finish the practice. And we were visiting my brother's club one night, and I was chatting to someone at the end of the class, and he came at me, and I wasn't expecting it. And whereas normally I'd be able to accommodate what he was doing and look after him, I just reacted, and he hit the mat just like an explosion, and so hard. And actually that was the end of it. So normally he'd go for 2 or 3 minutes, but that one throw actually sent him to the chiropractor because he hit the floor so hard. So there is immense power in it. And, you know, obviously I didn't want to do that to him, but he caught me by surprise and just it exploded out of me. Whereas normally I would be matching his power and making sure he was looked after. But just shows you, you know, these moves, they are designed to kill. And if there hadn't been a mat there, I'm not sure quite what would have happened. I think he'd have been a lot more broken than actually he was. So thank goodness for the mat. James, I'm just wondering what you're making of all of this.
It's fine. It's what I was thinking about is the use of language. Everything you've been saying, I understand and agree with. I suppose is just my kind of language and how we use it on the mat is just slightly different. Okay, tell us more. I suppose we talk about power and doing, and it's the translation. How can I put it? You watch your uke, you follow your uke. And if your intention is to put a lot of power into trying to be more physical, it doesn't work. So you follow a uke, you watch where he's going, yep, and you take him down. It's when you try to impose power, it doesn't work. I'd agree entirely with that. So yes, I'm not trying to impose my will on them, but remember they've lifted up to strike. Because I've added to that, they want to come down, so I help them down. So it's very much a joint venture. Yeah. Because that's what I mean by watching. You always kind of watch your uke. Yes. You're not trying to impose the technique on top of them. Yes, absolutely. So if you try pushing the arm down, a good uke will just stand there. That's why you have to have this. There has to be this first blend is where you've unified. Yeah. When you come together, then you can move together with great beauty and smoothness and power. But unless you've got that unification, and I'd say it's more than watch, James, I'd say it's awareness. You know, you're using all your senses to pick up what's going on with your partner. I suppose that goes back to those comments about the use of language. Yes. Interpretation of it. Yes. Yeah, and you know, generally speaking, of course, what you're seeing is perhaps, well, people would think it's maybe the primary sense. I think there's something just before that. I think there's you pick up the intention, that energy shift when somebody's deciding to attack you, and that's what you have to react to. Again, a practice that you can do when you're on your own is try to do this exercise by watching for the first hand movement. And what you should find is you're always behind the 8 ball. So in other words, when they're starting to attack, that's when you move. When you see them move, that's when you respond. And you should find you're always not quite there. And then when you try again, don't look for the movement. Just try to take the whole of them in. Just be aware of them. And when you feel you should move, move. And you'll find then that there's a beautiful blend and that your timing is right. But it's that, yeah, kind of sixth sense almost that's harder to compute unless you've experienced it.
That's what I usually do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Steve can't see, can he? So he doesn't have that luxury. He has to feel what's going on. He's not just in. Steve, for for you, James, he is blind, so he can't see what's going on. He has to sense what's coming. And I can tell you, I've attacked him often enough with a bokken to know that somehow he picks up on that, and he's not there to be hit. I don't have to pull my cut. In fact, the harder I cut, the more likely it is that he won't be there, which is pretty impressive. Any other thoughts?
It just got one rider to the previous comments. I think you still have to make sure that you keep control of the situation and that you're not letting your partner take control of what's going on.
Absolutely. So, yes, you're the driver of the car. You don't want to become the car. That just means that you're directing where the energy goes, but you still have to have that You know, when you're driving a car, you should feel at one with the car. You know, when you're really driving it nicely, it kind of just feels like an extension of you. And that's how it should feel when you're working with your partner. Not that you're trying to control them. When you're trying to force a car around a corner, not so good. When you really see the corner and you've moved in anticipation, that's when the car and you feel like one. Again, I hope I'm not making stuff up. This isn't just my own experience. But if you don't like car driving, you can take anything that you like that. And where you're using a tool that you're very familiar with. So you with musical instruments, Finn, you know, when you first pick it up, it feels really, really clumsy. But when you practice for a while, it simply becomes an extension of you. And that's how you want it to feel with another person. But just remember, they're an animate object as opposed to an inanimate object.
Yeah, you control your musical instrument, not the instrument controls you.
Yes, exactly.
I would extend that more towards
Definitely.
the actual act of making music. It's not, you don't impose yourself on the music when you're making music with somebody else. You both feel the music and you're both in the music. It's another force.
Well, that's kind of a really nice way of expressing it, because of course there's you, there's the instrument, and then there's the music. And I like the idea of you don't control the music, you let the music kind of come as a result of this unification with the instrument. And I think, you know, good Aikido is like beautiful music. It's how it should feel. It should feel a joy for both parties, the thrown and the thrown. And if you feel that someone's imposing their will on you, or they're just using straightforward physical strength, that joy kind of dissipates. It becomes just a challenge of wills and a contest of power, physical power. And some people love that, but it's not where I get my joy. I don't actually think that. For me, that's not Aikido, because you haven't got the unification. You've got one battling on one. Okay, I have absolutely no idea of the time. It's come up to 8:10, so my timing is pretty good, it would seem. Okay, so any final questions, thoughts? Okay, well then let me bow out. Thank you so much. For those who are interested, the Thursday session is with a pal of mine, Bjorn Saw, who's a 6th Dan, was an Uchideshi for Saito Sensei, but you'd never know it. He has beautifully smooth Aikido. Not that I'm saying anything bad about Saito Sensei, but I would say he's taken his journey in a slightly different direction. And we're going to be exploring, is Aikido a spiritual path? Which is a biggie for many, many people. So I tend to avoid that language, but it's very central to what Bjorn teaches. And I want to tease out from him what he means by that. And I know, because I've had some pre-discussions, that actually we're really not miles apart, albeit that our language is quite different in how we describe what it's all about. Should be fascinating.
Right.
All right, have a great
Thank you
week,
very much.
or
Bye.
great couple of days until I see you on Thursday, whichever.
Yes, see you Thursday. See you on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.